And good morning, my friends. I am not in the slightest bit ready for this live stream today. Of course, I never am. I acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, the Whadjuk Noongar peoples. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and to Aboriginal elders and peoples from other communities who may be taking part in this live stream today. Oh, okay. Oh, well, there's a bunch of chat there already. What have I missed? Okay, Chip is here. Being awake again, it hurts a bit now. Why? What is going on, Chip? Is it just that 10 o'clock on a Sunday is not an hour that should exist? You know, I've got to turn my mic down a bit. I'm booming out. Okay. Dodgy. Thanks for coming along. Ross. Gavin, Family Plans is here. And Shaki, good morning. Yes, or afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are, because we are global. Mitchell. Dana. Hey, thanks for coming along, Dana. Tabletronics. Mitchell, and I probably missed a few people. Russell. So, David, did I say hello to David? I don't remember. Anyway, welcome. Thanks for coming along. Now, I had planned today, and in fact, when I put up the video in the title, I put perhaps more IoT access point, and that was my plan, but then a couple of things came up. So, the very first thing, yeah, we may actually get to the IoT access point. We'll see. It might be later in the episode, but you know what I'm like. Everything runs over time. Everything that I think is going to be a 10-minute little segment ends up being 2 hours of talking. So the very first thing is a controversy that has been brewing for a long time and has kind of blown up just in the last 24 hours on Twitter in relation to Microchip's MCP23017 I2C expanders. And it was Bradley, let me just find where this is because I can bring it up and show you where all of this came up. So, Bradley Gawthrop, I hope I'm pronouncing Bradley's name correctly. And I am going to grab some things and put them up on screen for you to see. Now, backstory. Alright, the MCP23017 is a chip that many of you will be familiar with. It's an I/O expander. It has 2 ports of 8 bits each, so a total of 16 I/O lines, which can be addressed using I2C. There is also an SPI version of the chip, but what we're talking about now is the I2C version. And it's used in the light switch controller. Many people are using it in OXRS related projects because it's a really useful little way to get a whole lot of extra I/O pins into your project. And, sorry, I'm talking and distracted from finding where it is. That Bradley posted. Here we go. I think I found it. Yes. It came about because of a post on Hackaday. I'm jumping around all over the place. What's new? Okay, here we go. Up here and a little bit of zoomage, and here we are. Now, Hackaday put up this article which Bradley linked to, and it is about the datasheet for the MCP23017 being modified to tell us that we can't use the top bit in each of the ports as an input because we'll get undetermined results. I'm going to try to tell this story from the beginning. Putting it in sequence is not easy. So each of the I/O pins on the chip can be set to be either an input or an output. And if they are an input, they can have pull-ups turned on. So you can set the input to be biased high and then pull it down to ground to activate it and then detect the activation. And it's pulling to ground, which is what is done in the the light switch controller. Now, this is the comparison of the entries in the datasheet, and so this is a datasheet. And the thing is that this didn't happen within the last day or two. It's just that all of a sudden a whole lot of people, including myself, have become aware of it within the last 24 hours and gone, no, how could you do this to us? So the Rev-C devices, which were out in July 2016, this is what it says in the datasheet. Donk. Let's bring this in. So we've got 16-bit remote bidirectional I/O port, I/O pins default to input. And then in the Rev-D version, June 2022 release, it says 16-bit remote bidirectional I/O port pins GPA7, GPB7 are output only. What? These are pins that we've been using as inputs for, like, people have been using these pins as inputs literally for decades. This is an old chip. It's been made in enormous quantities. It's been built into many different devices and products, including many of my own projects, and in my case I rely on it as an input device. So losing one of the input pins from each of the ports, so losing two of the inputs, is kind of a big deal. Now, there is a twist to this. The twist is that on the face of it, the very first analysis of this is that they changed the silicon at some point. So when they went from Rev-C to Rev-D silicon, it was changed to remove those two pins as inputs. And of course the question then is, why would you remove them as inputs? Doesn't make any sense. It was a feature that was there before and now it's not. But this is the thing. It was not there before. It was broken before. And Microchip have known about this for, I think it's something in the order of 10 years. There have been posts in forums. Let's see if I, yeah, here's my reply. Well, that sucks. Looks like I'll have to replace it on my light switch controllers because I use all 16 bits as inputs. And where is it? Yeah. This was one of Bradley's comments. That's all well and good, but if you remove functionality from a part after decades in production, you can't just soft update the datasheet. It needs a new part number so people don't end up making batches of bad product. Now, what I'm trying to find is there is a link to a, maybe it's in the Hackaday article. There is a link in here somewhere. Losing, is it there? No. No, must be somewhere else. Anyway, there is a link to the official Microchip forum where a number of their customers have been posting problems with this particular chip. And they posted it, I think it was around, this is working from memory, I was reading this last night. I think it was around 2012 that people were posting that they had problems using the high bit on both ports as an input. And it would work most of the time, but sometimes it wouldn't. So the actual symptom, as far as I understand it, I haven't done this on the bench myself to verify it, but from what I understand of people's descriptions, if you assert any of the first 7 inputs, it works perfectly well. If you assert the 8th input, so bit 7, what can happen, not always, but in some rare situations, is that the message coming back over I2C that shows the status of the inputs will also show other inputs as being asserted. And so it gives you ghost inputs. You put an input into bit 7 and then you get inputs coming out. Like, it looks like you're asserting other inputs as well. And if you are just asserting that input occasionally, like say you are using a switch and you're pressing the button occasionally, you might press it a few times a day, very low frequency, the probability of this happening is pretty low. But if you put something like a square wave into that input, and in the case of the example from the forum, what the customer was doing was putting a 10, I think it was might have been 1 megahertz. I think it was a 1 megahertz square wave onto that high bit, and and was very reliably causing these ghost triggers to happen on the other inputs. And yeah, that even if you run it at a lower frequency, you'll still get it happening. It just won't happen as often. So what it looks like, as far as I can tell, so I have not been paying a whole lot of attention to the chat in the last few minutes. I just saw that Sion asked, is this a datasheet change or a chip change as well? I think my understanding of this is that it's both. It looks like what they did was a silicon revision in June 2022, and then, but without changing the part number. It's got the exact same part number, so you can't order distinctly which one of these revisions you want. And they also updated the datasheet to reflect that those can't be used as inputs. But I don't know if they made any changes to the silicon around those inputs with the RevD silicon. So I think it's more a case of they had to do a rev for production reasons or whatever it was, and at the same time they changed the datasheet to reflect the reality of the fact that you shouldn't be using those as inputs and shouldn't have ever been using those as inputs, because the chip has had this bug for decades. So anyway, ranty. How did I end up in a ranty mode? I don't know. It happened. Yes. Amori just pointed out it's only for the I2C variant. Yes. That's right. I've never actually used the SPI variant of the chip, and that is an interesting point. So what that points to is that the bug is not within the input buffers or the input processing circuitry. It's in the way that is being processed and then reported back to the host MCU. So if you are communicating, if you have the SPI version of this chip, supposedly it works 100% fine, you don't get the problem. But if you have the I2C version, then you get this problem. So it's something to do with the implementation in the chip of the I2C communications. There is something strange going on. Yes, Austin said Silicon has had this issue since 2014. They're just acknowledging the error. I'm not even sure if it began in 2014. I have a feeling that that was simply when people started figuring it out and posting publicly about it and calling Microchip out on it and saying, what's going on? Why are we getting these ghost triggers? So I think 2014 was not the date of when the bug started happening. I think it's the date of when... Scott said, scroll down, it's in the comments on Hackaday. Okay, cool. That was in relation to the thread. Somewhere down here, somewhere. There have been a lot of comments now. Here we go. This, I think, is the Microchip forum post. So this is from November 2014. Jonas Elofsson reported it, saying, oh yeah, so here we go. Applying a 1 megahertz square wave on PA7, read the port a few times, and somehow messes things up. So you get ones that are clocked out when they should be zeros on other inputs. And yeah, so this is really when it became... and then other people jumped in and started saying they were seeing the same thing as well. And Microchip essentially said nothing and didn't issue an errata and didn't change the data sheet. So from 2014 until now, so 8 years later, they have issued an updated datasheet that says, don't do the thing that the chip was designed to do. Yes. I was cooking dinner. Austin, what have you made for dinner? Dana said rants are so easy and so nice. I don't like doing them though. It's really not me. It doesn't feel natural. I'm not a confrontational person. I don't like saying, you stuffed up, you shouldn't have done this, even when it's a company. It just feels like a personal attack. Yes, Austin said, date the company acknowledged it. Exactly. Gavin said, we'll fix it in post-production. Yeah. I wonder if you can actually work around it by... what would be interesting is to characterize the problem. For example, if this error occurs, say you are clocking in a square wave onto pin 7 and occasionally you get ghost results where you get other inputs being asserted as well. Is that only ever a single response? So if you are polling the chip as quickly as you can and you're getting zeros on all inputs and then you get the high bit asserted and then it gives you a response with fake values on other bits, and then you get the next packet, is that going to come in saying that it is only the high bit, or is it going to continue showing ghost assertions? That would be, it wouldn't be too hard to characterize. I've got a signal generator here. We could stick a, yeah. What you would do is just connect it to a microcontroller and simply have the microcontroller read the port as quickly as possible and dump it out, say to serial debug or something, and log it, and then clock in the square wave. And what we could see is whether we got more than one consecutive response, or whether we got multiple consecutive responses until the port changes again, or until the bit changes. And if it is only ever one phantom response message bracketed by valid messages, you could actually fix that on the MCU side, provided that you can deal with a decrease in your sample rate, because you could just take multiple samples and do some, it'd be a total pain, but you could do multiple samples and compare. So you could see whether a whole lot of bits change simultaneously, which would be very, very rare in the case of something like a light switch controller. So you could mask those out. But basically you would throw away responses from the chip that show changes that don't make sense in the context of what the state of the inputs was before and after. As Scott says, like debouncing a switch. Yep. Gavin says, remind Elon not to use it in his fancy rockets. They could accidentally land on Mars. Yeah. Oh, yes, good point. Amori pointed out there is the similar PCA 9575. And, oh, okay. Dion, thank you for the super chat. I will get back to that question in just a second. I promise I will, I'll get back to that. Other people may have suggestions as well. Kevin said, cool. I need a random value generator chip. Must be a market for that. And Dodgy said, so am I hearing the light switch controller needs to be redesigned? I have been thinking about it for a while. All right, so with what I was just describing, if the current version of the silicon, so the RevD silicon, still works as inputs, but with these odd things going on, we can fix that in software. But that's the classic thing, isn't it? You know, every hardware person says, oh, fix that bug in software. Oh, I'm getting low bitrate errors on warnings on YouTube, so maybe I'm having buffering problems again. I hope not. Yeah, so the question, Dodgy was asking whether the light switch controller needs to be redesigned. I had been thinking about this over the last couple of years. A number of times I have thought about whether I should drop the MCP23017 from it and go to something like the PCA 9575. There are a couple of others. There's another one which is interesting, and I've mentioned this one before, Serial Wombat. It would be extra work, and it doesn't necessarily avoid the whole silicon supply problem, but it's an option. So this is now one thing that someone pointed out in one of the Twitter threads, I think it was someone replying to me, is that the MCP23017 is most likely at the silicon level a PIC microcontroller that Microchip has got loaded with firmware, and it's basically like a special purpose application of a PIC. It's and they've just been selling it like that for years, which makes sense. I mean, if you're doing something like, well, essentially as an I2C expander or an I/O expander, it needs functionality to be able to do. It needs a state machine, and it needs buffers for messages coming both in and out on SPI and I2C for the two different versions. There are a number of functions in it that, I mean, obviously all of this can be implemented in hardware. You could do it 100% in hardware with no software whatsoever, but it kind of makes sense for a chip like this to essentially be a microcontroller, and it is running firmware which communicates via I2C or SPI, and it uses its I/O pins in the way that you configure it. So you send it config messages over I2C, and you can change inputs to outputs and vice versa, turn on input pull-ups, all of that sort of thing. And there are projects like this which do exactly that. So this is a PIC microcontroller which is running firmware that allows you to communicate with it over a couple of different options. You can communicate via UART, so basically just a serial communications, or I2C, and this is entirely open source. It's, well, entirely to the extent that the firmware is. It's based on a PIC, and there are two different versions. If I scroll, where is it? Getting started, that should do. So there is a mini version here. You can see there's an 8-pin DIP, and there is also a larger version. So here we've got one pin which is an input only, and then we've got 3 pins which can be inputs or outputs, and we've got I2C and power. So that's the Serial Wombat 4B chip. Then there's a Serial Wombat 18AB chip, and it's obviously larger, it's got more I/O. And the interesting thing about this is that because the firmware has a whole lot of different options for driving the I/O pins, what you can do is have direct support within this for things like PWM. It can do things like drive WS2812 LEDs, because it has the support for the protocol built into the firmware. So you can connect WS2812s onto this, and then communicate with this I/O expander over I2C and tell it to turn the LEDs on with a certain color, and it just takes care of the protocol. So, interesting. However, there are a couple of issues. One is availability of the silicon. So these are, as I said, PIC microcontrollers, and if you can buy the, let's see if I can find, where are we? Yeah, you can buy them pre-programmed from Broadwell Consulting, which is the company that has created this, and firmware. So if we go to Serial Wombat 18AB firmware, You can see that's in here with an explanation for it. And let's go into the 18-pin version. Where are we? This one will do. Yeah, so you can see here it's a PIC24 FJ256GA702, and that's available in both DIP and SOIC, and I think it's available in 3 different, or maybe even 4 different footprints, like DIP, SOIC, QFN, and SSOP or something. But if you can't buy it, then then it's no better than an MCP23017. And if you do go this route, you then have to load firmware onto every one of these chips. And that is the second issue with this. So if you can buy the hardware, if you can buy the chips, that's great. Then when your devices are being assembled, as part of the assembly process, you need to be loading the serial Wombat firmware onto it. One of the nice things about the 23017 is that it's just a put it on the board and it works solution. It does exactly what you want and you don't have to screw around with it too much. So, oh, I just saw some comments from Sion. We're going back a bit. Sion said, I just submitted a board to JLC 20 minutes ago using GPA7 as an input. Oh, well, it doesn't matter if the old silicon is foobar as well. This is such perfect timing. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to say, Sion. It really sucks. So now Sion says, now I have to move GPA6 and GPA7 to GPB0 and GPB1 and add another int pin on port B, and I don't have any I/O spare for a second int. Oh, that gave me a really evil idea. Well, what you can do is OR the ints together. I've seen that done, and it can be as simple as 2 diodes, I think. So if you diode OR the 2 ints from the 2 ports, you can then send it into a single interrupt pin on your microcontroller, and that's the nice solution to it. The thing that popped into my head just for a moment, and this is a really, really horrible solution, is taking that interrupt pin and sending it onto an input on the other port, which will then in turn trigger its input. No, don't do that. That was a silly, silly idea. Ignore that. Pretend I never said it. Now, Dion had a question, and so thanks for the super chat, Dion. The question was, are there companies in China that will distribute small assembled boards and send a percentage to you? I have an idea, but don't want to mess around with distribution. Short answer is yes. And the I've got one of those brain fade moments where I can't remember the name of the company, and it's one of the really big, really well-known Chinese hobbyist suppliers. Come on, someone help me out. It's the one who make the little Seed Studio. That's it. Seed. How many D's are there in Seed Studio? Seed Studio Bazaar. Yes, I think it's Bazaar. I've never actually used their service for this, so I've got no idea what it's like. Where are we? Ecosystem Bazaar. Somewhere here. Share and sell. Perhaps this is it. ODM. Yeah, they've got a Fusion PCB assembly service. I'm just trying to remember. Oh, licensed products program. Maybe that's it. You might have to dig around a little bit on the Seed site, but I am pretty sure. Is there anything there? Licensor cooperative partner. Licensor is the owner of the product design, software and hardware, trademarks and brand of the product. And licensee, so Seed licenses So licensee provides manufacturing, sales, marketing, and after-sales services for the product. And they provide all of the distribution, so they do the manufacturing. Apply for the program. Clients provide product introduction, review the product, Seed will then manufacture the product, gets launched, and then as they sell it, you get a monthly royalty based on the amount that they sell. As I said, I haven't used this, so I have no idea what the process is like, but I'm going to drop that link into the chat just to save a bunch of searching. And yeah, I'd be interested to know if anybody has used the Seed program for this. Seed's, what do they call it? I can't remember. License program. I'm pretty sure they had another name for this at some point, and it was a little bit easier to find. But maybe that's an option. This is a different subject, but it's definitely worth bringing up. There's, this is a really unfortunate thing. So I'm sure many of you would know Hibbett Home Tech and Paul Hibbett's channel, where he does very over-the-top and enthusiastic videos about home automation and lots of rants. So Paul's YouTube channel was hijacked a few days ago, and I haven't seen the details of how it actually happened, but the end result was that whoever hijacked his channel got access to it. So they got into the admin side of his channel, they deleted all of his content, so they just went through and deleted all of his existing videos, and they uploaded new videos that were promoting, I think it was cryptocurrency or something, I'm not sure. So his channel, with a lot of subscribers, a very popular channel, suddenly started promoting all of these scams. And for Paul, I'm sure it would have been a heartbreaking situation. All those years of working on his channel and all of the content gone. Now I don't know whether it has been restored. I saw this morning that he posted a video talking about how it had been hacked. I haven't actually watched it yet, but so all I can tell you is that it happened, and I really hope that he's got all of his content back, because one of the things that would be really bad would be, so in my case, for example, I have local copies of most of the videos that I've uploaded to YouTube over the years. Not all of them, but probably about half of them. I don't have any of the live streams, but I've got maybe half of the proper fully edited videos in their original form on a disc, like on my NAS. So if I had to recreate my channel from scratch, I could re-upload some of the videos at least. But that doesn't help in terms of links, and if you're putting the videos back up again, then they all get new URLs, all of the embedding, all of the references to it, all gone. So I really hope that Paul gets his channel back in a state where all of the original videos are back at the original URLs, but that seems like a long shot. And Mitchell pointed out that Don S from New Zealand and Barnacles both got hacked a few weeks back as well. I didn't realize that. I hadn't seen that had happened. Yeah. So it seems that this is a real threat at the moment. If you have a popular YouTube channel, then you're at risk of being hijacked and turned into a spam promoter, which is really, really sad. I hope it doesn't happen to me. Yeah, so any other suggestions for... Oh, okay, so Scott said his content wasn't deleted, just marked as unlisted. Oh, that's a relief. Oh, Dodgy says, I have 99% of my videos stored on the NAS. Yes, great. Oh, Gun. Yes, I know I have an email from you. So Gunn says, greetings from Estonia. Would it be possible to buy or pre-order 2x32 port light switch boards? That's kind of funny considering the subject of the state of the MCPs. Amuri, time for bed. Sion, yes, you do have a popular channel. What are you talking about? Ah, Stephen says, Jerry's channel was apparently due to the LastPass hack. Ooh, yeah, that's painful. So if you've got your access credential stored in LastPass, and then LastPass is compromised, yeah, you could lose access to everything. Oh, Sion said maker fabs are cheaper. Okay, so this is talking about the this whole thing, having someone else make your products for you. So what is it? Maker fabs. Show me maker fabs. Turnkey PCB assembly solution provider. Okay, I don't have any experience with maker fabs. I think I've come across them at some point in the past. Where are we? Where are they? What country are they in? My guess is USA, most likely. Don't know. Not that it really matters all that much. So how do you go about having maker fabs make your stuff? Product certificates, premium PCB, PCB prototyping, PCB assembly, do they... Oh, cooperator. Let's see what that is. That sounds like a word that describes what we're talking about. Yes, okay, so cooperator projects and open hardware by maker fabs customers, which are mostly created by makers, hobbyists, engineers from all over the world. Okay, so it looks like they do the same sort of thing. That is a, since I dropped in the URL for Seed Studio, I will drop in the URL for maker fabs too. Thanks for the tip, Sion. Yeah. Mitchell says, ooh, the Zigbee. Yes, anyone who has watched Paul's channel knows knows what that means. Hence I don't put your place. I don't... Okay, I'm not following part of that. Allnet.China can help with production distribution. Oh, Don S from New Zealand, you're here in the chat. Restored now. Oh, cool. I'm glad to hear that you got that back. Yeah, that sounded like a random comment. That's referring back to a minute ago where I was talking about channels that had been hijacked, and Don S's channel had been hijacked. Dentistries, thanks for coming along. Doesn't matter about being late. It's just been me ranting about microchip and the MCP23017 for how long? More than half an hour. More than half an hour. That is ridiculous. I'm not a ranter. Why am I doing this? Okay. Dave Paul Jones. Hey, up, down, under. Okay. Oh, intermittent tech. Hey, Quindor says, Allnet China does my Quin LED product range, but they don't have a program like Seed or PCBWay Bazaar, for instance. It's more as a real partner. Okay, so that's more along the lines of you have them manufacture. Do they do distribution? I don't know. I don't know about Allnet China. Gavin says pizza time. It is not pizza time yet. It's only 10:40 in the morning here in Melbourne. I don't care about any other time zone. Okay. Stephen said, you're turning to the dark side. Let the rage flow through you. Feel the power of the dark side. No, I'm not going to. Dentistry says there's always pizza time. Yes. Says Mitchell, it's always pizza time. Warm up the reflow, says Gavin. Yes, we will get to that. We may burn down the building. Could be dramatic. So I've got my phone set up here on Droid Cam, and I think I have it working. Kind of. We will try that in just a moment. Yes, anytime is pizza time if you like pizza enough, says Imogen. Definitely. Now, reflow oven. It's 3:40 p.m. yesterday here in San Francisco. Mike, you're in San Fran. That's right. I think I remember seeing something about that. I think you posted on Facebook saying that you were traveling. I don't remember the details, so I hope you're having a great trip. What's it like in San Francisco right now? It's February, so San Fran never really gets cold, does it? It's, I think even in winter, it's still kind of a nice place. I don't know. Wet. Oh, really? Okay. Raining a lot. Cool. Don S. asked, can a pizza oven double as a reflow oven? Ooh, in a very, very crude way. Oh, Cable Tie says pretty similar to Melbourne, actually. So San Fran weather similar to Melbourne. Interesting. San Fran. I've only ever been there once or twice. I've been to I've been through it a number of times. I've only ever actually been to the city and stopped there and gone places once. But I've been through a number of times, like going to Google in Mountain View. Yeah. Ooh. Alistair says, plenty of pizza oven reflow mods. Just add a microcontroller and temp sensor to follow the reflow profiles. No, but the thing is that I think that would be for pizza ovens that... sorry, I'm very nasally today. I've got a bit of a sinus infection, and I should have taken more Denizen this morning, and I didn't. Those are for fixed position ovens. So pizza ovens where you open the door, put the pizza in and close it. Just like a toaster oven reflow conversion. Which of course, if you're going to do that, get the Reflow Master Pro. I did a video about that. That's Xeon's little control board for it. But the issue with conveyor belt ovens is that you can't ramp the temperature in the oven up and down rapidly to follow the curve. The whole point of a conveyor belt oven is that it has different zones that are physically separated, and each zone is taken to its required temperature and then held there, and it's stable. So as you go through the heat, the soak, the spike, and the cool parts of the reflow curve, what is happening is that the board is physically in a different location within the oven to expose it to the heat that it needs for that stage, that part of the process. So, yes. Alistair said, missed the conveyor belt, must have been driving. Yep. Yes. Dodgy says, I tried to tip the toaster on its side to put that pizza in. Not smart. I've heard of people doing that and setting it on fire because, anyway, that's another squirrel I could chase. I will try not to chase too many squirrels. Let's just get to setting the place on fire. That's the fun bit. Now, what do I need? What do I need? As I'm doing this, I am not going to be able to see the chat at all because I'm going to go and take you for a magical mystery tour into the back part of the factory where the reflow oven is currently sitting, along with a fire extinguisher, and we're going to plug it in and see what happens. So I'll take you on a little bit of a, yeah, the Steve is powerful in this stream. You're right. The Stevening. Squirrel chasing shiny stuff. So let's see, do we have a working camera? I'm going to, now to get this, I've got my phone here set up and it's running DroidCam. In order to get this, okay, I'll show you Steve just before I do the switch. Actually, no, I'll leave him up there and I'll show you in a second with the other camera. I don't have this set up properly in my my streaming setup to be able to just switch to it. So to switch to that camera, what do I need to do? I need to, I think, switch that. Okay, this may cause havoc. I'm going to press a button. All right, oh, hang on. No, that hasn't quite worked. What I need to do next is switch to camera 8, which is that one. And now I think we're going. So we now have a portable camera backing up. Oh, this is the seasickness moment. All right, backing away from the streaming setup. So there's my desk and streaming stats and the chat and all of that sort of thing. So you wanted to see Steve. Steve is up here, sitting on the shelf, overlooking everything. You can see the RGB LED cube behind. All right, I now cannot see the chat at all, so whatever you say, I can't see. Oh, new water cannon. You'll have seen the old water cannon. Where are we? Down there. There's the water cannon that you would have been seeing a lot of over the last couple of years, and there is a new one. Just doing some updates to the design system, to the control system. I won't go into that right now. Okay. Oh, hang on. I forgot. I'm going to back out here. We're reversing because I need to pick up something. Here we go. I need a stand to put this on. This is going to be rough when I clip this in. Sorry about this. Okay. And that is the reflow oven. This is what I got during the week. This came from Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace. There was a place down in, where was it? Oakley, an electronics assembler. And this was a backup oven that they'd had sitting in their factory for a few years. In a state where they think one of the zones isn't working, but it hadn't been turned on for years. They really don't know what's going on with it. So they put it up on Marketplace, and it was $200. So I grabbed it. I figured that for $200, it's worth a try. Now, I actually can't see what's going on. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So, this is Lachlan's handiwork. I'll just put that down out of the way for now, because I want to show you the internals of this. You can see the end of the conveyor belt there. Now I think this is a left to right arrangement, so that's the input side of the conveyor. And if I bring the camera right in here, I will flip the top open in a minute. You can see the fume extraction connection there, so that'll go to a duct that goes up to an extraction system. There's a little window on here so you can look inside and see the boards. Now this whole thing is currently sitting on a trolley. It is really surprisingly heavy. It's much heavier than I thought it would be, because reflow ovens don't really need to be heavy. They don't move quickly, but yeah, this one is really heavy. Certainly not something you can pick up by yourself. But it's sitting on a trolley, which means that it's not entirely stable. If I overbalance it, it could, and this lid is very heavy. So I'm going to stand on the base on this side to stabilize it while I lift this lid. And this lid must be 50 kilos at least. There's a lot of weight in it. And in here you can see the conveyor belt just goes straight through. We've got heating elements here. There are heating elements underneath. So it's 3 sets of elements on the top, 3 sets of elements on the bottom. There are baffles in here. So there's a baffle on the top part, a baffle on the bottom, and that provides some isolation of the heating from between this section and this section here, so that there is some differentiation in the control. So this will be the warm-up side. So as the PCB comes into this part, it warms up, and then so what is it? It's heat, soak, So through this part it would be soaking, maintaining its temperature, and then spike would be around this area, and then cool down as it gets towards the end. And I actually can't see what the camera is seeing right now, so I don't know if it's in your field of view, but over here at the end there is a vent where a fan is blowing down, and that would be for part of the cooling cycle. So it spikes the temperature to reflow the solder, it comes past that spike location, and then it is cooled down as it exits the conveyor over there. And there are things like, there's a glass panel here which keeps the air within this area. So this comes down and sits on this edge and acts as a bit of an air seal. And the whole idea is to minimize transfer of heat between the different zones and allow more control of each of the zones. So I'm going to lower this down. That is really unexpectedly heavy. And what else do we want to do? Let's back up a little bit. Now, so this controller, now the particular thing, there should be an R on here. It's a Novastar brand. It's an American system, and as far as I know, from what I've seen of them, I don't really know very much about Novastar brand. It looks like Novastar is a pretty decent type of reflow oven. They make good stuff. I mean, Adafruit I think Adafruit have several of the Novastar ovens, but much newer than this. I think this is a very old one. The newer ones have specific, I mean, there isn't even a model number or anything on it. I can't find a label on it anywhere that says its power requirements or anything. There's nothing other than the Novastar name, missing the R sticker that's come off at some point. And this controller seems to be different to all of the current Novastar ovens. It's got controls for zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, and speed, program number, so presumably you can store different profiles and then recall them. GSE Control 96, and I've looked that up and I can't really find much info about this either. So I think this whole thing is a bit of an antique, but, well, maybe it'll still do what we need. And it came with a lead that, let's see if you can see this. This is the power lead for it. It's enormous. It's like a garden hose. Oh yes, you can see that's in the field of view. It's got huge conductors in it. And so Lachlan and I were talking about this morning. This particular oven is set up for 240 volts, but it's an American company. So Lachlan's theory, and I think this is quite plausible, I think he's right, is that what they would do is make the ovens with the leads for American use at 110 volts, which means you need twice the current. So American power leads tend to be much bigger than Australian power leads because of the I2R losses in the cable. So what we've done, and the thing is that because we don't have data sheets, I can't find any information on this, I don't actually even know how much power this thing needs. It is single phase, it's not 3-phase. So it's going to take a lot of current on one phase, but I don't know how much. And this is where the excitement comes in. So what we've got here is a 15 amp cord going to a 15 amp plug, and I'm going to plug this into a 15 amp circuit and turn it on. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of people screaming at me right now, but what's the worst thing that can happen? I know there are some pretty bad things, but sorry, just unraveling this cable. I want to make sure the cable is all unraveled before power goes through it. What I hope is going to happen is that if I turn it on, I should get some activity on the controller and nothing much else. I don't expect that it would go immediately into a heating cycle if I hadn't actually told it to start. Test, input, yeah. Anyway, we shall see what happens. So off camera where you can't see me, I am wandering over to the back of, yeah, over near the switchboard. So there's a 15 amp power circuit over here, and I'm going to plug this in. It's actually the 15 amp circuit that I use. All right, I'm going to turn this on. I'm out of sight. You've got the view of the oven. The main circuit breaker that you can see, that big round red switch on the front, is currently turned off. Well, it's not a circuit breaker, it's just a power switch. I'm going to turn it on, and nothing dramatic happened, which is a relief. Now, just because drama, if this does go all badly wrong, at least we've got it on camera. So CO2 fire extinguisher, and let's turn it on. Wow. I don't know if you can hear that. The fan's running. The conveyor's running. It's saying it's flashing on these zones. I don't want to touch it. Now, Lachlan did check that the earth on this is good, so it is definitely all earthed. But I can see inside that the light is on. That just lets us see what's going on inside there. We've got speed set to 0.4 feet per minute. It's saying 600 Fahrenheit. This is all in Fahrenheit. 600, 660, 750 Fahrenheit are the three zones. And it says program number 12. Now, what I don't know is whether it's actually getting hot. Maybe it is already running in heating mode. I suppose I can feel the fan is running, like the cooling fan that is blowing air through onto the output stage in the cooling part of the cycle. I can feel that the air is blowing out at the back of it. But I can feel heat. I can actually feel heat coming out of that part of the oven. What I would really like to know is how much current this is pulling right now. I've got no idea. What we're going to do is put a current clamp onto the active lead and measure it. But this is, well, turned it on and is doing something. What I don't know though is whether those three zones are all actually heating as they should, because I can see the light in there is flickering occasionally. What I'll need to do is maybe get the thermal camera on it, and then I can see if each of the elements is heating. But this is kind of amazing that it's even got this far. It's very encouraging. Program number 12. I don't know what all of these do. It's in Fahrenheit. I'm going to have to work out some conversions. Yeah, it's going to take a bit to figure this out. What does this do? I wonder if this is the fan speed or if it's the conveyor speed. I'll turn it right down and see if anything changes. It's got this unlabeled knob here. No, turn it up. Yeah, that's the fan. If I turn this, if I get down close enough so the microphone is near it, listen to this. That's the, I think it's the cooling fan speed. So what it looks like is that we can set so on a normal reflow oven, like a usual profile, you have, I'll get to that. There's a little bit of mechanical damage to the conveyor, but I can fix that. What I'm seeing here, I'm going to bring the camera in a bit closer, because you can't see what I'm looking at. Bring it in here, aim it down. No, bring it in even closer. Yeah, now see how these zones are flashing on and off, and this one is doing something different. Maybe zone 2 is the one with an error. This one is flashing at the bottom, this one's flashing in the middle, this one's flashing in the middle. So perhaps the position there indicates whether it is at temperature or not. I don't know. We're just going to have to play around with this and find out. So speed, 0.4 feet per minute. I've got no idea if any of this makes sense. But if you look inside, you'll see that there is a flickering. I don't know whether this is, yeah, you might be able to see it on camera. If you look at the light in there, you can see it flickering. That's not just a camera strobing effect, that is actually flickering. I can see it flickering. But I don't think that's anything to do with the heating elements. I think that's just the light that's inside for illumination. Well, other than getting the thermal camera onto it and seeing what each of those heating elements is doing, that's probably about all I can, oops, sorry. That's probably about all I can do on the stream. But that is extremely encouraging. I'm really pleased with that. So yeah, I can feel the heat sort of leaking out the front here. Air blowing out the back. I can feel the enclosure is just getting slightly warm. Not hot, but you can just barely feel that it's warm. With ovens like this, it usually takes a while for them to get up to operating temperature. Oh, interestingly, the bottom zone is now flashing in the middle as well. So perhaps that means it is up to temperature. Yeah, don't know. Anyway, I can't really do much more with this until I have it sitting on the ground, because right now it's on the trolley, and what I want to do is have it turned on with the lid open and point the thermal camera at it, and then I'll be able to see if each of the elements is working. But I can't do that at the moment because there's so much weight in this. Now, as I said before, this must be like 50 kilos or so. It's really surprisingly heavy. Just the lid I'm talking about, not the whole oven. If I open this so that it's sitting in an upright position, it puts all of the weight over towards the back, and there is a very good chance of the whole thing just tipping over because it's sitting up on the trolley and the trolley wheels aren't as wide as the base. It's kind of balanced right now. I'm not going to risk that. But once I've got this sitting on the ground, I am going to open the lid, maybe prop it so that it's definitely secure, and run it and point the thermal camera at it. But for now, I am going to turn it off. Well, happy days. I'm going to go and turn it off at the wall as well, just to make absolutely certain, because I do not want to walk away from this. Ooh, I can feel the cable is warm. So this is a 15 amp cable, and it is noticeably warm. It's definitely a few degrees warmer than ambient. Yeah, I really want to put a current clamp on this and see how much this is taking. It could be significant. All right, prepare for seasickness. I am taking the phone out of the tripod, and let's head back into the front, and I'll see if I can catch up on chat. Here we go. Well, it's not very efficient, but we could do that. No, let's just switch back to here. Okay. Now, I need a tissue. Oh, Chip said, I want that phone mount. Yeah, it's really, really handy. Just 1 second, I've got to mute myself. Sorry about that. I should have changed the camera as well to put it onto something more interesting. Yeah, a few years ago, I bought a few, just looking around for an example. I bought a few camera mounts So the little quick connect mounts that go between the camera and the tripod, because a lot of cameras come with them, or tripods come with them. When you buy a tripod, typically it'll have a way of either just screwing into the bottom of the camera, or it'll have a quick release thing, but they're generally not compatible with each other. And there are some really popular ones around, like the Manfrotto style, but I basically just bought a heap of identical ones, and I put them on everything. So all of my tripods, all of my cameras all have identical quick release bases on them. And I also ordered a clamp, like a mount for the phone, so that I can just snap my phone onto any of my tripods. The overhead camera is the same. It's clipped into one of those things. I can unclip the overhead camera and I can clip different cameras in there. I could clip my phone in there if I wanted to, but it's really handy having interchangeable mounts on everything. Yeah, so, okay. Let's see. What have I missed? Right. Stephen said, didn't you only discuss the oven last week? No, I didn't even have it last week. Austin said, should buy a DJI Osmo Mobile. Yeah, I really should. That would be much better than the shaky cam. Dave Paul Jones says, my Chinese reflow oven smokes. Guess it's a substitute masking tape instead of Kapton tape. Yeah. Oh, BB Junkie 1023, welcome to the stream. Sorry, I'm a bit discombobulated right now. I'm trying to get my brain realigned with whatever is going on in the chat. Okay. Fume extraction equals pizza smell remover. Yeah. Kevin says, let's not talk about OH&S. Yeah. Work safe. Provisional improvement notice. Yes. Yeah. Oh, Scott said, at minimum, it's a starting point for a custom control if you like. Yeah. Okay, I'll get back to Andrew's comment in just a moment. Yes, so that was something that I had in mind, and I may end up having to do that because at the moment I still don't know the state of the oven. The place that I bought it from said they thought one of the zones was not working, and they thought maybe it was just like the driver for the zone. So once I get the thermal camera on it and I can see if each of the zones is heating up and what temperature they're getting to, if I'm really super lucky, it'll be working. That's a bit of a long shot. I think what's more likely is that I was getting heat coming out of a couple of the zones. The fan was running, the controller was running, but maybe one of the heating elements is not working or a driver is not working for one of the channels. So I'll find that one of the zones isn't getting to the temperature that it should. And depending on the nature of that fault, I might end up having to replace the controller. I don't know. But at least it gives me a reasonable starting point. And the conveyor seems to work, which is good. It's a wire mesh conveyor, and some of the wires, I think when it's been in storage, it's probably the end of the conveyor belt has been bumped into something, so some of the wires are a bit bent. But 10 minutes and a pair of pliers, and I'm pretty sure I can fix all of that and have the conveyor all nice and smooth again. So I don't see that as being a huge issue. And and at least some of the heating elements are working. What I really hope is that if there is a fault with it, it's not a heating element, because those heating elements, I didn't really point this out at the time, but when I had it open, you would have seen that they were long white ceramic things with a slight curve to them, and I've got no idea how I'd go about replacing that, particularly on a machine of this age. So if one of the heating elements is dead, that could be a problem. I might end up having to get a different type of element and retrofit it and mount it in there in order to make it work, which is possible, but it'd be unfortunate. It's doing this sort of thing, it's always it's a judgment call, because I could, two courses of action, spend $200 getting this reflow oven in an unknown state, spend potentially days and days, and maybe like in the order of hundreds of dollars, maybe more, in parts to repair it and get it working again, or spend $5+ grand and order one and have it delivered and land and plug it in and know that it's going to work and it's got a warranty and all of that sort of thing and it's new. So by my nature, I tend to fall on the side of buy the cheap thing and try to fix it and make it work. I don't know why. It's a false economy a lot of the time. I think I would be better off sometimes, like you've seen this with the pick and place machines. If you think about how much time I have spent working on those pick and place machines compared to what it would have cost to... So if I had spent that same amount of time on billable hours, I could have just gone out and bought myself a very nice pick and place machine. But somehow I always fall into this trap of taking on the project and yeah, making a rod for my own back instead of simply buying the solution to whatever the problem is that I'm trying to solve. Yeah, so interesting. So Scott says Americans use 240 for high load items, yes, and 380 I think as well. Don S said there are two types of IR element in there. One has a thermocouple embedded. Okay. Andrew pointed out, try emailing Novastar. I spent Friday trying to track down info on an old PA speaker system, third company, and I got the info I needed. Hey, nice work. Yeah, sometimes companies can be extremely helpful. You can email a random question about some old product and they'll come back with an answer. Not always, but sometimes you can be pleasantly surprised. So perhaps if I email Novastar and just ask them about it, at the very least if they could identify it, because Novastar is a current and going concern. It's a legit American reflow oven manufacturer. They make lots of different types of ovens, really big ones, and catering to the high-end market. And they seem to have some technology which is really interesting. So when I was trying to find information about this oven, I looked into Novastar, I just looked at some of their existing ovens, and they have a thing, Novastar reflow oven. I can't remember what term they have for it. It's like a, horizontal convection. No, they called it like a horizontal convection airflow management. So here we go. This is DDM Novastar, and they do this thing. I don't know how innovative this is or anything, but they make a big deal out of it. So they have this patented horizontal convection technology for even heating across the entire face of the PCB. And you can see here this little animation. What they do is circulate the air around, and so from the way I understand it, the way they specify their zones is different to typical reflow ovens. So, for example, often if you buy a reflow oven and you get a 5-zone reflow oven, what that usually means is 3 zones on the top and 2 zones on the bottom. And so it's not 5 zones in terms of 5 horizontal zones on the top of the board, which is what you might think at first. And the way they do this on the Novastar ovens is when it says it's a 5-zone, it's actually 5 zones horizontally, and then the air is circulated around. So what they do is they achieve a fairly high level of isolation between each of the zones by using vertical baffles and then circulating the air around the board. So when you have a zone, that is both the top and the bottom of the board being brought to that same temperature. It's not 3 zones on top and 2 on the bottom. What they say is 5 zones is actually 5 on the top and 5 on the bottom. And I think that is the way, that particular oven that I've got out there, I couldn't see all the fans and things that they talk about on the current versions of these. But what I think I have is one of their very early ovens, and then since then they've gone rather more upmarket and developed their technology a whole lot more. Oh, interesting! Look at this. This is supporting Andrew's point. So it says DDM is a true reflow oven manufacturer, customizing systems and still selling parts for 30-year-old units, not just a reseller. So maybe I would get lucky if I sent them a photo of it. One of the things that that makes me think that this is one of their really early models is that it doesn't even have a model number or a label on it. It's just like, it's a Novastar reflow oven. It is the one oven. It might be like the original thing that they started manufacturing. So this could theoretically be a 30-year-old oven, perhaps with a retrofitted controller. Anyway, so Andrew, thank you for that suggestion. I really should just, what I should just do is email a photo to Novastar and say, hi, I have this oven, it has your name on it. What can you tell me about it? Or do you have a user manual or anything? Yeah. Where are we? Oh, Imogen said, add some dolly wheels to the bottom, make it easier to move around. I did that with my industrial sewing machine and it's awesome. Yes. So there are a couple of factors there. In principle, yes. And for a reflow oven, it's probably okay because, all right, I'm playing out this train of thought here. I love the idea of putting casters on everything and being able to move things around. With a reflow oven, because it doesn't move rapidly, it's not throwing itself around, having it on casters is probably okay because it's not going to walk. With a pick and place machine, the head on it is moving around very rapidly. It's throwing itself around and the whole thing vibrates. So having it on casters can be a problem with that. But with a reflow oven, it basically just sits there and it has the conveyor belt moving very slowly. There isn't very much physical activity. So if it's on casters and the casters are locked, then I don't think it's going to move anywhere. And the other thing is that the alignment doesn't have to be perfect. With pick and place machines, the conveyor belt that goes through them is adjusted to the width of the PCB and it just holds it on the edges. It's only about 4 or 5 millimeters on each edge. So the PCB has to be perfectly aligned with the conveyor, and the conveyor has to be just slightly bigger than the PCB so that it will fit along it and stay within the guide channels. And that's not the case with a reflow oven. So as the PCB comes off the conveyor belt out of the last pick and place machine, and then probably on an inspection conveyor belt would be the very last thing, comes off the inspection conveyor belt and it gets put onto the conveyor belt of the reflow oven, which doesn't have any edge guides on it. It's just a wide wire conveyor belt. So it doesn't matter if it moves a few millimeters sideways. In terms of vertical, it doesn't really matter that much either, because you can have the conveyor coming out of the final stage. You can have the reflow oven just very slightly lower, and the edge of it is curved anyway, so it's going over the roller at the end. So the board can come off and be picked up on the start of the conveyor for the reflow oven, and then just pass along it. And after the reflow oven, you don't really care about the precise alignment of the board, unless you're going into something like a board restacker at the far end, in which case it needs to go into something that is going to guide it into a known location, and then the board stacker can deal with it. So, yeah. But But yes, you're right. I do want to put casters on it. But the other thing is that I need to make it adjustable. What I need to do is set a standard height for the conveyors. Basically, the conveyor height off the floor for everything in the production line needs to be exactly the same, which means you need adjustable height on the feet. So what I would want is casters with height adjustment, so that I can get the oven to the precise height that I want, adjust the 4 feet to get it all sitting perfectly flat, because the floor itself, it is pretty good in here. This slab was poured very well. It's done in a few large sections, and there are some slight differences between the sections. So, but the area where my production line is all on one slab. It doesn't cross any slab boundaries, and it is really quite flat and smooth. They did a really good job of pouring it. So putting machines on it means that they're automatically reasonably well aligned with each other, but you do still need fine adjustment, particularly between pick and place machines, or really between machines that have a conveyor that isn't just a flat surface, that have a conveyor where it is supporting the board just from the edges. So I definitely would want adjustable. So what I'd need is quite heavy duty casters, and I'd want them to be height adjustable as well. Yes, where are we? Cable Tie said, don't melt the clean room shed. This shows how far back I am in the chat. I'm looking at chat from back when I was standing out there. Yeah, that was what Lachlan said as well. He said it'd be a shame to burn down the clean room. Yeah. So, yes, lots of people talking about 10 amp versus 15 amp connectors and things. That is a genuine 15 amp cable, 15 amp plug going into a 15 amp circuit, and the circuit is right at the circuit board. So it's not even as if there's a long cable run from it. The circuit board is on the external wall, just here anyway. And right at the circuit board, mounted next to it, is a 15 amp outlet on a dedicated circuit breaker. So I plugged into that, and that was on the orange cable was a 15 amp rated cable going into a junction box connecting into the original factory cable of the machine. So we were fully rated end to end for at least 15 amps in terms of current capacity of what we were passing it over, and it had a 15 amp circuit breaker, so if we went much past that, presumably the circuit breaker would have tripped. So that was one of the possible outcomes. Doing an oven of that size on a single phase is kind of unusual. Once you get to that sort of size oven, typically they go to 3-phase, and pulling a lot of current out of a single phase like that, I thought it'd be borderline, and maybe it would trip the 15 amp circuit breaker. And it could well be that if one of the zones is not working, it's pulling less current now than it would if it was working properly. So that may still be an issue. We may still have to go to a higher current circuit, like a 20 amp or whatever the next standard size is, which would mean getting the electrician in and putting a higher current outlet on there on another circuit. Yeah, Stephen W said initial warm-up versus steady state power consumption. Yes, that is a thing. Presumably it'll take more power to heat up than it does to maintain steady state. Dodgy asked, was just wondering if it was leaded or unleaded pizza oven. Yeah, I don't want lead on my pizza. Austin said, is there no model number plaque on this machine? Not that I can find. I've looked reasonably carefully. I've looked underneath, inside, under the covers, around it. I can't find anything. Normally there will be a compliance plate at the very least, because if they were selling this as a commercial product, at some point it must have had certification in the US, I guess. And I don't know how it ended up in Australia, but it's definitely set up for 240 volts. So I don't know. Imogen asked, are they ceramic heating elements? They look like it, yes. And Don said the laggy zone may have a bad element. Yep. Okay. Oh, yes. So Don said, this was a good observation. So this is referring back to when I was looking at the display of the controller, and the segment on the left had a vertical line which could be at a different position, and they seem to be flashing on and off, which could be, it could have been flashing just to get your attention. It could have been flashing to show the duty cycle, like if it's turning on and turning off the element in order to maintain a certain temperature. And so Don's theory is that if it's the bottom line, then it is below target temperature. If it's the middle line, then it's at target temperature. And perhaps the top line is over target temperature. That sounds quite feasible to me. It certainly makes sense. Austin said, should look at retractable casters. Can sit on the ground normally but lifted on wheels easily. Yes, that's a really good way to do it. And so what you would have in that case is on each corner you would have both an adjustable foot, which is it's basically like a bolt with a foot on the bottom of it, and by turning it you can change the length of it, and it's extremely stable. So when the machine is in normal operation, what you do is have the machine sitting down on that, so it's an adjustable length foot, but then mounted next to it you have a caster which can be raised and lowered. So you can engage the caster, which pushes down, and then it lifts the machine, so it lifts the fixed foot off the ground just slightly, and then you can roll the machine around, get it into the position that you want, and then retract the casters, and it sits back down onto the fixed feet, and it then becomes very stable again. That is, yeah, that is the nice way to do it. Yeah, Mr. Fixit said, for the P&P machines, you need to use those leveling casters. Yeah. So for the pick and place machines, ultimately, I don't think they're going to be on casters. Sion thinks it's a really bad idea having them on casters, and he has much more experience than I do with running these, this sort of size of machine. And they do throw themselves around. So even with the tests that I've been running, the machines move a bit, because the head on it moves so fast. And even though it's a fairly small mass of the head, when it's whipping backwards and forwards around in the machine, it's enough that the whole machine moves. And that can have issues with things like the alignment of the conveyors, as I was talking about before. So what I want to do, at the moment, the machines are sitting on trolleys, which Cable Tie very generously came over and helped me make one day, some months ago. He came over after a live stream, and we cut up the timber and screwed it all together and made the trolleys that the machines are currently sitting on. And that has been fantastic up to this point, where I've been able to move them around if I need to. And I've moved them a couple of times. It's really nice. Just the machines weigh a few hundred kilos each. There's no way I could move them on my own any other way. You can move them with a forklift, but that's kind of awkward. It's nice being able to just unlock the casters and roll the machine around, and it's a nice clean smooth floor, so they're really easy to move. But what I want to do is make more static stands that will fix them in place and with height adjustment. So each of the machines has an adjustable foot on each corner, and so if I make a stand that has a pad for each corner and the machine sits on that pad, I can then use the adjustable feet on each machine to do the fine tuning and get them all at exactly dodgy, yes, you're correct. They're dollies, not trolleys. Okay. I suppose being pedantic, that is correct. I've never thought about the difference in definition between a dolly and a trolley before. So a dolly is a flat platform with wheels under it that you can move. What's a trolley? I suppose a trolley would be a flat platform with wheels under it and a handle. I don't know, is that the difference? Yeah, Stephen says no handle, yep. Yeah, Sion says, yeah, they are totally not heavy enough to stay stable. Casters will make it really unstable. Oh, Dodgy asked an interesting question, which is, would the 60 Hz running at 50 Hz have anything to do with it? I don't know. Yeah, well, Mitchell said, or you could probably just separate the zones on 3 phases, thus 3-phase. Yeah, so that's true. So if I was going to the extent of totally rewiring this oven, I could convert it to being a 3-phase oven, I think. It'll take a fair bit of messing around, but yeah, Mitchell is right. There are 3 zones, and I could power each zone off its own phase, and then just have the controller powered off one of the zones. One of the phases, doesn't matter which, because that wouldn't take much power, and switching each of them. Yeah, maybe a 3-phase conversion is in order, but we'll see what happens with that. Dodgy says, about to have scrambled eggs on Turkish bread. Stomach is ready for breakfast. And Dentistry says, I just finished pizza. I was inspired. Yeah. Is this a single slab situation? Yeah, so Austin says, pick and place should be on the ground during operation, not even locking casters should be used. Yeah. I think it would be okay to have casters, the type of casters that when you engage them, it raises the machine, and then you can roll it. Because when you disengage the casters and lower the machine, it then sits down onto its permanent feet, and it ends up very stable, locked in position. So maybe, yeah, it's all going to come down to what I end up doing for the frame to sit those machines on. I haven't even, ooh, I just saw a comment. Sion said, my IN12C arrives tomorrow. Hang on, IN12C, let's look this up. I think I know what model this is. I think I've seen it before. So this is the very big version of the Neoden oven. Yeah, here we go. Switching to here. Come on, Neoden IN12C reflow oven. 15,000 US buckaroos. Wow. Yeah, that's the sort of thing where you spend money and solve the problem. H12 HEPA plus activated carbon filters. Let's zoom in a bit on this again. So let's see this machine. Very nice. This is solving the problem properly, Sion. Oh, look at this. Yeah, so this is the type of conveyor that can grip that just supports the edges. So what you can do is run double-sided loads through this. You can see that there is a long thread there. And this, I guess, is probably a guide, like just a polished stainless steel rod. I could be wrong. But what it looks like is that this threaded rod on here allows the width of the conveyor to be adjusted. So when you're supporting just the edge of a panel, you need to adjust the conveyor width. And it's got these, yeah, it's almost like a mini mesh, as far as I can tell from that supports the edge of it. Yeah, that gives us a better view of it. You can see there's a coupling just in here for a drive system of some kind, and it would, I can't tell from there which side moves, but one of these sides will move in and out. Maybe both, I don't know. That wouldn't really make sense. I think it would make more sense to just move one side. It depends on what your pick and place machines do, I suppose. Test for IN12, so they've got a test panel running on there. You can see it's just sitting on the edges, supported at the edges, and the rest of it is clear. And there's another test panel through there. Very nice. Controller. Looks like it's got a screen sitting up on the top. So IN12, so 12 zones, 6 zones top, 6 zones bottom. Oh, this is cool, Sion. I'm so happy for you for getting something like this. PCB parameters. Yep. All very cool. Right. Where am I? Where am I in the chat? Oh, Mr. Fixit says, look at the link I posted. It has good pictures and dimensions. Where is that? Mr. Fixit. Mr. Fixit. Did I miss a link? I'm scrolling back in the chat. Where is Mr. Fixit's link? I've scrolled back a really long way and I don't see one. Sorry. Did I miss something important? Mr. Fixit, if you posted a link, maybe could you post it again, please? Oh, Dodgy says, Dolly normally has 4 wheels, trolley normally has 2? Really? Oh, okay. Oh, Sion said, which oven did I get? That's the thing is, I don't know. I got, it's a Nova Star oven, but it seems to be a really, really old one. And I don't know. I do have a photo of it, hang on. Rather than take the camera back out. I showed it on the stream earlier, but that was with the roving camera. So let's see. Here we go. I'm going to drag this up onto the screen. So that's what I got. It's a Nova Star, except that it's meant to have an R on the end of Nova Star. So it's a Nova Star, supposedly 3-zone oven, or what they call a 3-zone oven. However, that is 3 zones up and 3 zones down. So it's what most companies would call a 6-zone oven. Yeah, and it's very, very, very heavy. Which reminds me, hang on, I'll show you a couple of other photos. There's this one and this one. This is from bringing it in a few days ago. When was this? On the 1st of the 2nd, so it was 4 days ago. This is the oven hanging from a crane being brought in through the roller door, and you can get a better view of it here. So the crane is attached to this trailer. Well, a better way of putting it is that it's a crane on wheels, and there happens to be a bit of a flat trailer space attached to the crane, because it's more of a crane than it is a trailer. And yeah, this was in the process of swinging it in. There are also side panels that go on here. You can see that this frame is all exposed all through here. But there are side panels that screw on and enclose all of this, and enclose this. So it's actually meant to be a lot more closed up than this. But we took all of the panels off so that we could then pass the straps through the chassis and lift it. And it's in a couple of parts. Now if I bring this up over here and zoom, well, I can't zoom in anymore, but right there where I'm highlighting it, you can see that there is the head of a bolt. That is because this top part of the oven is bolted onto a lower part of the chassis. There's a frame on the bottom part here, which looks like it's a standalone structure. So this whole box section on the bottom is like a standalone frame, and then the oven is sitting on top of that frame and bolted to it. And we just lifted the whole thing as a single unit. But in theory, what I could do is unbolt it, take the oven off that base and put it onto a different frame if I wanted to. But I don't see any particular reason for doing that. What are we looking at there? That would be the that's the entrance end of the conveyor, because we're looking at it from the back side of the oven there. Yeah, but it's right. Coming back to Sion's comments. So Sion said, yep, and also use my restacker from this so I can stack panels after reflow. Yeah, that's right. The having the adjustable width conveyor keeps the board in a known location. So as it comes off the end of the reflow oven, it's not just coming off at a semi-random position somewhere on the conveyor. It's nicely located. I mean, I know Sion already knows this. I'm not telling Sion. I'm just explaining Sion's comment. Yeah, so, and Sion said it's the shortest oven I could get that was reasonably priced. Even so, it looks like a pretty big oven. How long is that? What are the dimensions? Specifications, process chamber length, soldering, one process chamber, where is the outer dimension? System dimensions. Oh, it's actually less than I thought. Yeah, 2.3 meters long. Yeah, okay. When I first saw that picture, I thought that's a 3.5 or 3.8 meter reflow oven. If that's only 2.5, that's really surprising. It's more compact than I expected. Cool. Well, that sounds like it's just what you need, Sion. Yeah. I can see the link on my screen says Mr. Fix-It. Oh, I see. So, yeah, but what should happen though? So, sorry, context switch. Mr. Fix-It is trying to post a link, and I didn't see it. But Mr. Fix-It is not an admin. But hang on, can I change that? Can I make Mr. Fix-It an admin? How can I do that? Through here. Community moderation, participants, let's see, Mr. Fix-It. I actually don't even see how I can make Mr. Fix-It an admin. Anyway. Yeah, I thought that what would have happened was the link would have ended up not shown and just in moderation, so it could then be approved, because I'm pretty sure we've done that in the past. Like, other people have posted links in the chat and then a moderator has just said yes, that's okay. Search casters, Mr. Fix-It. Oh, here we go. Add as moderator. Okay. I think Mr. Fix-It, you are now a moderator, which means you shouldn't, which means you should be able to post links. Search casters. There we go. Haha, thanks. Okay. I'm going to click that link. Heavy duty leveling casters. Retractable leveling casters for workbench. 2000, converting. 1,000 kilos max loading capacity. They are solid looking casters. That's interesting. Oh yeah, you can see the ball bearings in there. Boop. Yeah, aluminium frame, nylon adjustable handle, steel top plate, nylon wheel, TPE support. Okay, so the support under here, I guess, is what locks it to the ground when it's not. Yeah, heavy duty leveling casters, retractable. Yeah, so that sort of thing would be good. I can feel a sneeze coming on. Gotta try to avoid it. That's not the heavy duty one, Mr. Fix-It says. Oh, okay. Vibrating load will still be an issue on those. Click on the, oh, Mr. Fix-It says click on the next one. The next one? Down here? I don't know what you mean. Anyway. Yeah, they can still swivel due to the vibration. With, oh, that's upside down. Yeah, but you can see that with this, what it's doing is, let's see. Yeah, you can see the two modes of operation. So this is upside down, so it's kind of a confusing way of looking at it. But imagine that this was the other way up. and the floor is right here. So can I zoom this in even more? Yeah, so the floor is right here. Now, if you have the caster retracted, it's sitting on this TPE stopper, which is stable. It's not going to move at all. That should be very secure. But then, if you lower the caster, it pushes down and lifts the TPE stopper off the ground, and then you can move the machine around. So I think that's a good way to do it. It means that you have the stability of being on a fixed stopper when the machine is in use, but you can also engage the wheel to move it around if you need to. Yeah. Oh, Mr. Fixit says at the top, the 2-inch one, they have a 4,000 pound load capacity. Yeah, and that's probably 4,000 pounds per wheel, and there are 4 of them. So, yeah, this is the 2,200 pounds version. Retractable casters. Oh, 2.5 inch. There, now I see what you're saying. Oh, I totally missed that link. Sorry, Mr. Fixit. So 2.5 inch, it's the larger version of the same thing. Yeah, okay. Right, where are we? Dion said, I've been doing image searching for your reflow. Might be custom or a knockoff. Yeah, I wondered that too. And I actually did the same thing. So when I was first trying to find it, I was doing a search for, let's see, Nova Star, where are we? Nova Star reflow oven. If we come back to here and go to images, and like you start looking through images of Nova Star ovens, none of them look like that oven that I've got. There are a couple of critical differences. If you look at the control panel area, most of the, this is on the Adafruit blog, so this is one of Adafruit's Nova Star ovens. You can see that the control panel has this angled surface, and then it goes straight down below that, whereas the one I've got has the bottom edge going in towards the enclosure, kind of a little bit more like this, but not that one. This is the style that Nova Star seem to be using on all of their current ovens. It looks a bit like that, but mine doesn't. And on this one, you can see that the conveyor extends beyond the base support, while on mine, the box that it's all on, is the same length as the conveyor. Kind of closer to this, except this one's a lot bigger. The other thing is that I haven't found any Nova Star ovens that are this color. It's got pale blue. All the side panels that should be on it are in a sort of mid to pale blue color, and all of the Nova Stars that I've been able to find are just beige. There's no color on them at all. So I don't know what that one is. Yeah, it just seems to be an odd one. It doesn't match anything I've been able to find about Nova Star. So if we go for Nova Star, let's see, 3-zone reflow oven, what do we come up with? There's nothing that I can find that is close to what I've got. So it is possible that's custom. It would, having a custom-made reflow oven would cost you a fair bit. It's possible that it's a knockoff. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah. What's that? Austin's got a link. What am I going to find if I click on this? Oh, okay. So that's lockable casters. And what about this, Austin? Where are you taking us? Ooh, Nova Star Model 1420 reflow furnace. That's a good find. Yeah, this color is that looks pretty similar to the color on the enclosure of the one that I've got. But this is a very different oven in terms of its design. It's got 2 hoods well, that can be opened, and then there's the three hoods that can be opened. The chassis looks quite different, but yeah, you're right. That is a that's another Novastar oven. I also haven't been able to find information on that controller, which is sad. Might have been an early engineering sample. Yeah, same logo, definitely, Austin. It definitely has the same logo. Oh, Mitchell said the branding is Novasta, not Novastar. That's how you do a knockoff. Yeah, you take the last letter off the name. Like it's like TVs you used to be able to buy along in the 90s or something, like Sony TV instead of a Sony TV. A Panasonic. Yeah, Imogen said, could you contact the company and ask? Yes, I am going to do that. That is the logical thing. Someone also a moment ago pointed out that I am almost out of time. Yes. Chip said 12 minutes to lunch. And now it's 9 minutes to lunch. And I've got to tell you, yeah, Sonny, S-O-N-N-Y. I am fading. I am really fading. I need to eat. I need to drink. I need to crash. So I may even finish this live stream early. There's no point starting to talk about anything new. And I think I am done with talking about it. Oh, Sion just asked, so does it work and how much did you pay if you want to share? Yeah, I am very happy to share. I actually talked about this a bit earlier, but I'll give a summary now because a few people will have missed this. It was on Facebook Marketplace, listed as reflow oven faulty, and I inquired as to what's the fault, and they said, we think one of the zones doesn't work, but they had never actually used it in production. The story goes that they wanted a backup reflow oven, because they already had a reflow oven. This particular company, it's down in Oakley. They already had a reflow oven that was in production, and they needed a backup so that if anything went wrong with their primary oven, they could bring the backup into place. And their SMT parts supplier, or the equipment supplier, had a second-hand oven that had come from somewhere else, and they gave it to them and just said, here, take this. This can be your backup oven. And they plugged it in and experimented a little bit, and the guy said that they spent maybe 3 or 4 hours just plugging in and experimenting, and one of the zones seemed to be not working properly, and they unplugged it and shoved it in the corner of their factory and forgot about it for years, and it's been sitting there ever since. So this is and then they got another reflow oven as a backup, so they ended up with 3 ovens, and the boss said, that thing, get it out of here, get rid of it. So they put it on Facebook Marketplace for $200. So I bought it for $200 in a possibly not working condition, unknown. So now I have a project. More projects, another project. Why do I do this to myself? So I have a project to investigate getting it working. So does it work? Well, when I turned it on earlier in the stream, it got hot, the conveyor belt ran, the display, like the controller, looked like it was doing stuff. But if one of the zones is not working, then that'll need to be fixed, because what's probably happening is that a couple of the zones are coming up to temperature, but one of them isn't, and I need to figure out if that's the case. Yeah, so Sion said $200 is awesome if you can get it working. Lots of Novastar ovens around, must be able to cobble together some spare parts, or at worst retrofit it. Yeah, so that was my hope, is that for $200 and the very kind assistance of my friend Steve and his trailer and his crane to go down to Oakley with me and pick it up and bring it back here, for $200 and some investigation, Worst case is I have an oven that doesn't work, but it could be a good starting point for making something work. And as we've seen now, the conveyor belt works at the very least. At least one of the zones is working because I can feel heat coming out of it. So we're off to a good start. I think if we can, yeah, worst case I think at this point now that we've got here is if one of the zones isn't working, I can probably retrofit a heating element or fix the driver or whatever is necessary. Mr. Fixit said you could adapt one of Xeon's controllers. They're not really designed for that purpose, but theoretically, yes. What I could do is use a Reflow Master Pro to control one of the zones, but it's a very different sort of application because with this, what you do is set a target temperature. I mean, it'll just be a firmware change. What you do is set a target temperature for the zone, and then you just leave it there indefinitely. For as long as the oven is running, it should be at that target temperature. Whereas the Reflow Master Pro is designed for retrofitting to something like a toaster oven, where you want the temperature of the oven to go through the cycle. So the entire oven is changing its temperature. With this, you heat it up, and the temperature of each of the zones stabilizes, and then it just stays there. So really what it just needs is a PID controller on each of the zones, and that is what the existing controller that is in it does. So right now, I don't know what fault or where the fault is. It could be in like the PID controller, it could be a broken element, it could be the driver for the element, I just don't know. So anyway, the investigation that we've done today, that gives me hope. I'm actually really pleasantly surprised with how far it got. I'm kind of amazed that we could attach a cable to it, plug it in, turn it on, and have it do what it was doing. So yeah, I'm feeling a whole lot better at it right now. And it didn't catch fire, which is a little bit of a miracle. I'm much more positive about getting that oven going now than I was before. Chip says 3 ovens to midnight. Yeah, and Mr. Fixit said that's even easier, 3 PIDs. Yeah, exactly. It's just a PID on each of the 3 zones. Yeah. Yes. Elstein elements. Don S from NZ said those look like Elstein elements. I have not heard of an Elstein element. So they were weird curved ceramic things. Elstein. Yes, that very much does look like this. I'm going to throw you back to here. So I just did a search for Elstein, and this sort of thing is kind of what it looks like, or like this. Yeah, Elstein FSR 1000, 230 volt, 1000 watt, 750C max. That is very much what it looks like. I'd never heard of that before. So Don S, thank you very much. That could be a really, really helpful, Elstein infrared heater, measuring instruments heating. Let's just go to that link and see what it is. Do they sell them? RM 0.00. Can we pick one? There are lots of different models there. Yeah, don't know. But if it comes down to it, and I have a broken element, perhaps this is the sort of thing that I need to be looking for. Elstein. It looks like this might be, yeah, this is the actual Elstein site. So 1000 watt FSR. Any geometry, blah blah blah. Operating voltage. Where do I get it? Where do I buy them? I'm just curious to see how much these things are. My guess is they're expensive, but who knows? Design consideration. English applications, Elstein, products. Come on, tell me where to buy. Where to buy? Looks like this is not the sort of thing that you just put in your shopping cart and order. It's the sort of company that supplies to manufacturers. So if I was Novastar, I would talk to them about buying them by the 1000, but as a consumer, maybe not so much. But in any case, I can probably just buy whatever I need directly from Novastar, assuming that they still have access to any of these sorts of parts. eBay has them. Ooh, Dion pointed out. All right. I'm wanting to stop the live stream, but now I am, so ebay.com.au, what is it, Elstein, or Elstein, I don't know how to pronounce it, Elstein element, what have we got? Nothing there that looks like it. Oh, that's a shorter one, 300 watt 570 max, and $84 plus shipping from Germany. Yeah, yeah, okay. Elstein, what if I, ceramic, what can I find? Yeah, a few different types. All right, so it looks like for these heating elements, I mean, these are only 400 watt elements. Oh, where is this one? FSR 1000. This looks closer to it, $74 plus shipping. Okay, so these prices are quite encouraging. It's not a $500 heating element. It's more like a $100 heating element. So, worst case, if I have to replace an element, it looks like it might be possible. Mr. Fixit says they're used extensively in those reballing machines. Yeah, okay. Oh, Mr. Fixit said they sell those elements on AliExpress. Ooh, and Mr. Fixit said, I was looking for one for my laminate bender. I broke one of my tubes. Right, so you got a laminate bender. Nice. You could do interesting things with that. There's a... No, I won't get into that. I was going to chase squirrels of tools for bending stuff. Lachlan has a thing here, which is a heating element. Okay, I won't get into that. Because I could chase down that subject for a while. And I really do need to pass out. So, Tassie Bob, yes, you just made it. Welcome to the end of the live stream. Thank you for coming along and saying hello. I'm going to have to chase, I think I need to chase some food and some caffeine. Or alternatively, some food and a nap. One of those things. Go eat some pizza. Yeah, so thank you for coming along, and I apologize that I did not burn down the factory, so you didn't get to experience that bit of drama. It could have been a very dramatic live stream, but I'm glad that I didn't. And it looks like there is a reflow oven that is within striking distance of being made to work, so that is a really good thing. All right, I'm going to head off, and you should too, because I'm not going to be here. You can stay in the chat if you like, but what's the point? Go and chat on Discord if you want to chat. And I will talk to you all really soon. Go and build something awesome. Thanks. See ya.